Next up, we're going to change the story as it sort of progresses here on day 2. The idea of how shared experiences become your brand, and how, if that is not an intentional strategy, how your brand actually loses its intention, meaning its purpose, how you've designed it. It requires definition. It requires crafting and constant cultivation and shaping, and this is a really important time, now more than ever. So I have 2 folks that I want to introduce you to this morning that are going to actually help us review what one of them authored called Reputation Warfare, about how you need to rethink your brand strategy moving forward and how content in the social web plays a role in all of that. So please help me welcome to the stage Leslie Gaines-Ross, the Chief Reputation Strategist at Weber Shandwick, and Peter Stringer, Senior Director of Interactive Media of the Boston Celtics. One of the things I always say at the beginning of every discussion is just how much I love these folks. I actually follow everyone that is speaking here at Pivot, and I ask them kindly to join us because I'm fans of your work, and I also believe that everybody here, including myself, has something to learn from your experiences. So before we kick off, I would love for your white paper on reputation warfare I thought was pretty fascinating. But for the benefit of everybody here, why don't you give a quick explanation of what that was about?
Okay, I would love to. I am a reputation expert, and I started to realize that lots of companies were stumbling, and that something really radical had been changing in the world of reputation. And I realized someone must know what to do, you know, when we're all fighting these wars with these reputation assassins and reputation snipers and vigilantes. And lo and behold, I found that the U.S. Army College had actually thought about this, that we were fighting an information war, and that companies don't need to remain defenseless. There are actually things that you can do to maintain, protect your reputation when you're being assaulted by these antagonists, these single person or small mini coalition antagonists.
Right.
So that's it in a nutshell.
Well, I don't know how many of you have come across reputation snipers, but I can tell you that as I was writing The End of Business as Usual, there's one section in the book, I'll leave the company sort of nameless, but I went out and said, you know, if I were a brand strategist at this company and I wanted to see how my brand was perceived, surely I could look at conversations not just for my share of voice, but for my reputation. And I had found that said cable company was just completely bashed. Every moment I checked, I made word clouds, just in general, what the state of their reputation was, and it was just, if I were the brand manager, I would have just had a heart attack. And then I generated a word cloud for their company website of how they described themselves and put them side by side so that you could see what the intended reputation was and what the reputation really was. And so for you, working with the Boston Celtics, I mean, your definition is something on the opposite end, where you want it defined for you, but at the same time, it's a brand that people feel, and sometimes it's love.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes it's not. So how are you approaching all of this?
Well, I think you kind of made the point. I think for us, the Boston Celtics, as someone, I grew up in New Hampshire with a basketball hoop in my driveway. I watched the games on my dad's lap in the living room. Those are my memories, early foundation memories. So to go and actually run digital and social for the Celtics now, I have a very clear idea what that brand is. And for us, there's 60 years of history, 17 world championships, 30 plus Hall of Famers. And so that's our brand. It's very defined for me. And so my job is, first and foremost, don't screw it up. You know, when it comes to digital and social. And clearly, yeah, your fans respond and react as you win and lose championships. You know, we won the championship in 2008. Really, we were just getting our feet wet into Facebook and Twitter, but that obviously helped us launch a massive brand in terms of, from a digital audience, you know, 7 million almost now on Facebook, you know, 750,000 on Twitter. A lot of that kind of helped that we won the title right as we were launching those platforms. We lost in the finals in 2010, and you have similar reactions. People are heartbroken. We can't change what happens on the court. But what we do try to do is amplify the personalities, because our brand is really about the players and the coaches and the history and the legacy of that team. And so really I look at my job is to amplify those personalities and those people, because that's really who people are attracted to. That's what our brand is. Our fans are passionate and emotional about the players we put on the court.
Well, Leslie, one of the things that I think it was shared yesterday, the stat was that 70% of a brand's content is created by its customers. When that happens and you're not necessarily playing a proactive role in defining what your reputation is, it's sort of defined for you, right? And I think this is really interesting in these moments that matter. It is what comes back in those conversations. It is what comes back in YouTube. I'll give you a super fast example. I was working with a very big regulated business, and they were struggling to develop their social business strategy. And one of the things that they had said is, before we actually look at marketing, what we really need to do is look at how we compete for really amazing employee candidates. And the problem that we're having is because the millennial behavior is so primed, the first thing that they do is not go to the website, they go to YouTube, type in the company's name, and what comes back is a whole bunch of horrible videos about how the company sucks, how it's horrible to work there, how the products are horrible. And their human resources lead said, this is what we have to fix, because nobody wants to come and work for us. They're not even bothering to check us out anywhere else on the web. So now in this era where reputation becomes incredibly poignant in terms of decision making, I mean, what are you telling businesses to think about as an expert?
Well, the employee example is a great example, because every company and every institution has to deal with the fact that their employees are kind of like embedded journalists, and they're out there talking about them. I mean, I go visit a company, I go to glassdoor.com, and I just check out what people are basically saying. But I think that companies really, first of all, they have to have a social media policy, so that employees have some knowledge of what they're allowed to do and not do. But companies are struggling because you don't have a lot of control. A great example, though, is, and I talk about this in the article, is that companies don't, like I said, don't have to be defenseless. They can actually do things. They can even have an internal blog, at the company, and employees can voice their concerns there. Or they could do as the Army does with the Army Strong Stories, which is let people say exactly what they want to say. The truth, the unvarnished truth. If I want to know what it's like being in the Army and I'm a parent or someone wants to go, I can go and see exactly what the truth is. So empower your employees to either tell the truth or to defend what's reality, what the truth really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that, Peter, you mentioned in a couple of your statements was the balance, or the combination, I should say, of social and digital. Mm-hmm. And that's actually very important, because I think we often get caught up in social because because it's something that we bring to the table, right? It's something as who we are as individuals we use. And as social and the importance of just say overall digital comes into your mix, not just in terms of reputation, but in terms of being engaged and being part of this expanding community, how are the Boston Celtics looking at the overall social and digital opportunity to stay relevant in this new era?
Well, I think for us, it's simply about, we want to be wherever our fans are discussing our team and our brand. So whether that's, Pinterest, Instagram, all these new emerging platforms, which, at this point aren't even really new anymore. But for us, you look at something like Pinterest, well, that's a platform where you would instantly think, okay, well, it's, depending on who you believe, it's 60 to 90% female. Why are the Boston Celtics interested in that? Well, we think it's an opportunity to reach a different brand, a different demographic. We think it's a good way for us to get our merchandise in front of people who would never otherwise come to our web store. And so we look at, all of these emerging platforms, and we did our time on Google+. We didn't see the returns. We haven't really spent a ton of time there. But we feel like we have to have a presence and a regular presence on all these platforms, because fans are going to different places now. It's not just, when I first took the job in 2005, it was runceltics.com, and we expected our fans to come there, buy tickets. Well, we've seen our traffic kind of start to drop off year over year, and so as the social networks have expanded, we realized, well, that's where we have to be. And we really look at the database in terms of our email database, our marketing database as the center of our digital business now. And you've got your website on one spoke, you've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, all on these spokes really trying to drive people back into your centralized marketing database, where you're actually going to try to sell them tickets and get them in front of your corporate partners.
one thing that you said that I just came back to was this idea of the truth, and how and how the Army lets people sort of vocalize what it really is like to be enlisted there. And it brought me back to that story with the HR department, because they said, you know, one of the things that we need to do right away is just flood YouTube with a lot of great videos about how wonderful it is to work here and how great our products are. And I said, that's absolutely going to work for a little while. But then what happens when somebody says, this looks like a great place to work, accepts the job, and then finds out that it really isn't what it was that they told, or at least the story that they told? And so there's this still old school mentality of bringing marketing and pizzazz and sensationalism to something, when in fact the truth is actually the most wonderful gift we're all given today, and that is, you're told what really is. And what do you do about that?
Well, you're right. What the Army does on the Army Strong Story site is it's the unvarnished truth, because they don't filter it. You can have blogs, you can have video, you can do whatever. So that's absolutely the case there. But one of the things that when you say, oh, well, let's all go tell the truth, one of the things that's happening, and I think everyone realizes that right now, is that there's this combination of truth and opinion and rumor. I mean, we have that right now with going on with the election. And it's all over the Twitterverse, it's all over everywhere. So how can consumers or fans really determine what the truth is anymore? So you go join this company, and some of it's true, some's not true, there's rumor, opinion. It's much harder than it is, and that's why reputations are being so battered today, because it's really hard to stabilize a reputation when there's this like infodemic out there.
Well, but what's your advice to businesses, though? I mean, if it is so difficult to discern the truth, I suppose not having a say in it at all and sort of closing your ears and your eyes to the matter is not the strategy. Participation is key. But I'd love to hear your advice to businesses, and then more importantly, what is it that everybody here can do tomorrow to take a proactive step in this direction?
Well, the answer is really for companies, leaders, to be transparent and really tell it like it is, and to respond really quickly when something happens, because if you don't, someone else has the advantage and they're filling in the void there in the story that you don't want told. So you have to really be responsive. The answer really is to prepare. And I mean, in your own research, I think it's 56% of companies don't even have a crisis plan. So that's really the answer here, is really being prepared. I mean, I don't know what Pete does in terms of being prepared for those moments when something's revealed, or a video or something.
Sure, yeah, I mean, we have those occasionally. When we're dealing with a brand like ours, so we've got obviously the Celtics, and what we put out on Facebook or Twitter is akin to a public statement, and I take the responsibility of tweeting for the team very seriously, because I realize, again, one misstep, one misquote could put out the wrong message that is, not what our coach is trying to say, or not what our organization wants to put out there. You look at what happened to KitchenAid a couple weeks ago and that type of thing. I'm very selective about who I'll even get near those platforms. And you can't have interns who are out on a Saturday night getting drunk and tweeting with the Celtics account. We just can't have that, right? So I think that's one side of it. But also, there's the side of, even I look at my own Twitter account, I've got 4,000 followers, not a lot, but the elections are going on the other night.
That is a lot, by the way.
Fine, but I think from the standpoint of the elections are happening, right? And so I'm watching this as an observer of social media, and I'm tweeting about kind of what is the social interplay between with these debates going on. But I kind of realized that I can't tweet my political opinions about what's going on or who I think's winning the debate, because in some way, whether I like it or not, I represent the Boston Celtics. And I think that's a huge thing that people are just now starting to really grasp, because I realize if I put a political opinion out there, that might show up in the Sports Business Journal tomorrow, and then it starts reflecting on the team one way or the other, and suddenly I put my job on the line. Right. In just a thoughtless moment where I'm just thinking about, oh, well, Romney's killing Obama. If I put that out there as a tweet, suddenly it's a political stance from the team that is unintended, and that we've certainly not authorized, and we're not in the business of making political statements. So I think that's kind of the other side of it too, is that as employees, especially as teams now, where we all are getting to this point where we all have reporters who are covering our team and speaking for the team. In some instance or another, you're becoming a brand representative whether you like it or not. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're kind of figuring our way through right now.
Leslie, with the last 6 seconds, I think transparency is a start, but I got to imagine that articulating what that reputation should look like, what that brand should be, requires definition, maybe almost like a new type of style guide for a new era of the web. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it just comes down to, I mean, Pete and I mentioned this, it's starting out knowing what your strategy is. We've heard that, vision, what are your values, and using that as a guide for everything you do. How you communicate, how you don't communicate, how you respond in a crisis, how you don't respond in a crisis. So it used something has to be so clear and such a center of gravity for the company that everything emanates from that. Once you have that, which I think Pete has that when we spoke, then you're in better shape than most who have no crisis plan.
Right, absolutely. Well, Leslie, thank you so much for your wisdom. Pete, thanks so much for being here, everybody. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you.